hydrogen, and this is time, right? And so we're really looking at the range within which we want to function, right? So that's our goal, is to stay within these boundaries, right? Starting to get too acidic, compensate to bring it back down. Starting to get too basic, compensate to bring it back up. And now we want to ask, well, if we get into these scenarios, as we approach this critical limit right here, so here we've got acid. Oh, let's do this. If we're up here, right, we're looking at acidosis. And if we're down here, we're looking at alkalosis. And so how does the body keep from getting into those danger zones, right? We're okay in this normal boundary right here. This could be 7.38, this could be 7.42. How do we keep blood plasma in that area? Well, with respiratory compensation, it's all about controlling the levels of carbon dioxide. Can anybody tell me, is there a connection between CO2 levels and hydrogen?
Yes.
What is it? Yeah, it's this expression here, right? It's that expression right there. So because of the way we transport carbon dioxide, if we alter carbon dioxide levels, or if we can change carbon dioxide levels in the body, we can affect the amount of hydrogens that there are, right? So if I wanted to do something to decrease the concentration of hydrogen, so where am I on this curve over here? If I approach this line right here, if I'm approaching acidosis, do I want to do something that would cause CO2 levels to increase in my blood, or something that would cause CO2 levels to decrease?
Decrease.
Decrease, right? Because if CO2 levels increase, what happens to my hydrogen? It's
Too
going to
many.
go up even more. Right? So I need to do something to decrease hydrogen. Okay? So to do that then, the goal then to compensate, so this is now going to be the compensation. The compensation, what I want to have happen over here is a decrease in CO2 levels, in the PCO2. Right? Because if I decrease the PCO2, this number goes down. If this number goes down, then overall, right, I'm going to be able to have my pH come back up. You okay with that? That makes sense? So what do I want to do with regard to, oh, let's do this way. How can I decrease the concentration of carbon dioxide in my blood?
Increase oxygen.
It would also increase oxygen, but an increase in oxygen doesn't cause a decrease in CO2. How do I decrease CO2 level? I exhale. More frequently, less frequently? More. So that means ventilation, right? Do I want my ventilation rate to increase or decrease? Increase, right? So if I increase my ventilation rate, that would mean what? That would mean my respiratory rate goes up, more breaths per minute. I'm going to blow off excess CO2, right? And that would cause CO2 levels to drop. And if CO2 levels drop, this drops. And if that drops, I've done some compensation overall for that. Now, this is a relatively quick fix. Okay? It's a way to very rapidly alter things, right? Because remember the chemoreceptors that are found? So the chemoreceptors, the central chemoreceptors and the peripheral chemoreceptors, they're monitoring hydrogen levels, they're monitoring CO2 levels, and that ventilation rate can change actually very quickly. And as it changes very quickly, the concentration of CO2 in the blood can change very quickly. So that's a respiratory compensation to allow for acidosis. What would I want to do if the concentration, if I'm down at the bottom, I want the concentration of hydrogen ions to go up, right? Okay. If I'm alkalosis, so as I approach this bottom one down here, right? Now what do I want to do to my CO2 levels? to get this, how can I affect my CO2 levels? Bring CO2 levels up, right? I can do that by increasing CO2 levels. I want to increase the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So I do that by then decreasing my ventilation rate. Compensate here. Decrease the ventilation rate.